Hello again, Glitch Ripper here, aka the original card game for the win. And I'm going to do another workshop event, but this is for a very interesting reason. There's a lot of really interesting dynamics with this set, Ikoria, Lara Behemoth, and I'd like to show off one of the crazier ones. Now, another one I can explain in a different way, but this one would probably be better doing the workshop event. So I'm going to go with it that way. And you get a couple of event decks in this workshop. One of them is based heavily on cycling. But cycling is an aspect that's been in Magic Gathering for a long time. Maybe a few other little new things in this deck, but is for the most part not really going to be as big of a deal. Now, there is the idea of ability counters in it, in this event deck, because this one deals with flying counters. But they're actually pretty simple compared with the other major kind of ability that's been introduced. It's practically a whole new dynamic, and that's Mutate. Now, when you cast a spell for its Mutate cost instead of its normal one, you put it either over or under a target non-human creature, and they kind of merge together. What'll happen is that it counts as whatever creature you've got on top, plus it has all the abilities that are from ones that are underneath it. That's something that might be easier to show than to explain. Even though that seems pretty succinct there, it's something that's better to be experienced. And this is one of the biggest mutating creatures you're going to see for a while, because he's one of the apexes. He's also got an extra special ability that you can use with his mutate ability, because you can bring him out of the graveyard with it. So if that factors into this event, that would be beautiful. But the fact is that I'm going to be trying to show off this dynamic, and there's several things that deal with mutate here. Like whenever something mutates, then effect triggers, or or something like that. But again, I'm going to try to show this off more than anything. Now, again, there's another major dynamic, but this one does have both of these event decks for this workshop have a couple of legends, so it's not really unbiased in terms of that. But the one that's showing off more the feature that's unique to Ikoria, or at least possibly unique to Ikoria. I mean, they could bring this back. They hinted at this in Unsanctioned and Unstable. Specifically in Unsanctioned, which was one of the unsets that was based heavily off the ideas of Unstable. And it had this, and those two sets had something called Augment. And it was kind of like this, but not exactly. The unsets are a totally different thing in Magic Gathering. I don't think I'll ever see an unset in Arena. There's just they're not really meant for normal play. It's like the difference between like a general social event and a drunken party. Yeah, you want to do unsets at a drunken party, not at or some wild event like maybe, I don't know, while you're celebrating from like a major sports event or something. It's not something that's meant to be like your casual play, or not to be taken seriously. But Ikoria has some dynamics that are just as crazy, and yet they have sanctioned this. So we're going into some weird territory here, folks, and that's why I've got to show this off. Now, during this time, you may have been able to read the whole quote by Felden over there, legendary figure in Magic Gathering, and they seem to have him introducing all these workshop events. But basically, this workshop event, I can just give you the quick theme here, let you preview what's in Ikoria. Now, it doesn't have the other major thing, which is Companion, but it does have the wilder thing, which is Mutate. Because Companion is more or less kind of like having a commander without having to have a commander and being in that format, or for that matter in Brawl. Now, you don't have to do it in one of those formats that usually has a commander. It's kind of like having one, but also kind of not. It's different. I'll go over that at some point. Also, slight correction before I go in with the Haversack of Favor. Apparently, it can actually be a few different things. It can either be a rare or mythic rare card. It can be 500 gold or 500 experience. experience goes towards like your special rewards, which can include, of course, the packs. So that's one of the things we're going to be seeing here. Now, I will be playing this event specifically with the big mutation deck. So because a lot of Ikoria is meant to be kind of slow start, but then hit like a truck, I don't expect this to be a fast match, especially if both sides are playing that deck. I could wind up going against the cycling deck, which might be a Blitzkrieg that just rampages me. Because, again, this kind of deck design usually has a slow start, and it's heavily reliant on that. It's about go big or get eaten by something big, which is the general theme of Ikoria. There's a few small creatures in Ikoria that can be played relatively quickly, but not really as many relative to a lot of different sets. So it's mainly about just build up, go big, get crazy. So that it's kind of like you're playing green, but with all the other colors as well. Because green is usually famous for its slow starts, and enormous hits. And that's kind of what's happening here with everything. So I'm kind of like, well, why can't everything be about giant creatures? Okay, do I have anything I can play? Because again, this is going to be a slow start. I might just go with it and see if I build up miraculously. Especially when this one gains me a point of life. Oh, and I found out some really cool things you can do with this particular... Yeah, you can do some... You can actually go mining if you find this battlefield. I do kind of like the interactability of the... I do kind of like the interactability of the battlefields of this. You can, like, do little clinking sounds and stuff. Oh, you come in there. I'm not really trying to cycle you. It gets a little musical when you start really hitting the crystal. You can do that with the other one over here. I think we're playing the same deck. Oh, I actually get to play something. I'll go with Death Touch on this one. And now that one has a Death Touch counter. Which means it has a counter on it that gives them that specific ability. In this case, it's Death Touch. Yeah, we're playing this deck versus this deck. This is going to be a little interesting. He's going with Lifelink. There's a pretty high chance. The thing is, whenever you start off like this, there's a pretty high chance that something means you're not actually going to be able to play your cards in your hand. And you're going to have to possibly just have to discard some hand. You can only have up to 7 in hand unless you have a special exception, and I just find it irresistible to mine these. Heed the Stampede. Can you hear the ringing? Oh, thank goodness, I love it. I will play this. Let this way for now. I guess I'll go ahead and attack. You do at least a little, right? Boink. Yeah, just look at these mana costs. This is actually going to be fairly typical of Ikoria. It goes for mid or long range. Ah, speaking of mutate, showing it off a bit. When something mutates, it will still have the abilities that it had before in terms of counters and stuff. Evolving Wilds. Okay. Let's see here. I would like to take a swamp, thank you. Well, one good mutation is worth another. Mutate! I will mutate you. I will take this one. See, do I want... see. Is there any other colors I can get? Oh, I'll take a forest. Okay. I'll just have you attack. So I illustrated that in an interesting way. Note how it was the other creature. The one that gave me this beast underneath. Don't know if I'll really need to put one on top. So can I mutate you in? Let's see, 2, 4, 5. Yeah, I can actually do that. Here comes Cog with a Titan Ape. And that's another thing. No matter how they're stacked, the full stack dies whenever it dies. So there is that. I select over. I will in fact attack with... This new set is going to be a little bit slower to use than normal because learning curve is going to be a bit full of lots of activities. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Need another one to pull that off. I'm going to block you. Although I think I'd like to play this. I will mutate you. But that's okay. I can get some other creatures out later. At least during the event time. Oh, and by the way, interesting rule of mutation. If the target is invalidated in the meantime like that, then it's played onto the battlefield as if it were played as a spell, but at the mutation cost. So, if they mutate cheaper, then ironically they just let you get it out cheaper. In addition to using up one of their spells to make a kill. Also, I can actually... Okay. I think I'll actually just straight up take the forest. But I can also get Brokos, Apex of Forever, back by mutating him. It's an interesting thing. Okay, that's gonna force me to sacrifice that one. And with that, I'll play again. Either until an hour's worth of playtime, or until I win the event. Whichever one comes first. It's kind of my little rule on this. Because Magic Gathering's supposed to be a nice, slow-paced, easy-going game, although they do add a sort of fast-paced timer on it. Wow, this is going to be a very slow start. But at least one that, well, again, I have at least options. Again, this whole thing is going to be very slow-paced. Especially if they're playing with their deck, so they will possibly outpace it. One good hello is worth a hello. Also, would you like to mine? Am I one of the few people who actually likes the details on this? I have uncovered my ore. I want to get a small army in a hurry. Oh, I have an egg. It's mysteriously an egg. Oh yeah, I think, yeah, that one has a low mutate cost, so I might be able to actually pull this off. Mine away! Oh. There's Yudaro, Wandering Monster. I seriously think that one was themed after Gamera. I do have Death Touch. He has one thing that's waiting for me to try to run him over. Nope, didn't fall for it. Blade Vanish. But yeah, I can see this deck is not going to go good against that high-speed aggro deck, in general. Because it's meant to be played large and in charge, not speedy with little guys. Also, does not help the type of event I have bad on-camera luck with seems to be this game. Very bizarre. But whatever. I'll push through or give you an hour. One of the two. Ah, Kogla Titan Ape on my side now. Be nice. He's sort of expensive, so I'm gonna have to get a ton of land. That's a moderate mutate cost. Hiding away! This is just irresistible for me. You know, I've played both a lot of Magic the Gathering and a bit too much Minecraft land. Can't actually attack with that because it has, like, no power. There we go. I mind it. Fastest miner in the West. comes and go up. You know. Over, please. Nice. I've seen Joga before too. Okay, took that hit. Getting closer to being able to cast Kogla the Titan Ape. Closer, not there yet. Oh, big cycle. Cycling Yudaro. Yudaro, Wandering Monster, has a very interesting thing attached to his cycling ability. Whenever you cycle him, you actually shuffle him back into your library rather than allow him to stay in your graveyard like you normally would. And if you do that enough times, you can put him onto the field directly. So he just kind of wanders onto the field through cycling. I mean, you can pay his like full mana cost if you got the opportunity, but you can also cycle him several times, so you can get the extra draws instead, and then eventually get him out as well. You still get the draws for cycling, so it's kind of an interesting situation where it's kind of like, why wouldn't you? Of course, if you did actually need him at the time and you had a boatload of mana, you could go for it. Yeah, that you don't have to mutate something with mutate onto something with mutate. It just has to be a non-human creature. was interesting. But yeah, now one has Menace and one has Death Touch. So this is getting crazy. And I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3... Yeah, I will actually have enough to mutate that. Be a 6, 8 at least. No, it'd be more than that. It'd be like a 7, 9 if I do it on that one. So, yeah. It's gonna be a pretty hype moment. Well, if we get another land, I'd probably want to play God. Nope, time to do this again. Let's mutate. Please. I slipped over. I'm just gonna go all out. That's got Menace, so you're gonna have to block with both. They poofed. Like, it's still a victory. Still a victory for the other side. Why would anybody ever do that? I don't understand nope-outs in this game. Don't they know how the system works? Okay, I got some of that just for my other wins. This is for the Haversack a favor, apparently, so I got the 500 gold. Smallest reward I've gotten out of that yet, but it was a good way of showing off Mutation. And I do have a few things that mutate already in my collection, but not very much. So that's something I'm gonna probably even maybe play more of just to get the practice in. Because one thing about these events, and that goes for the workshop as well as whenever you're doing a Brawlers Guild Hall, is you can actually play a lot of these events over and over again, especially the free ones. Like, I know there was somebody complaining about it being like 10,000 being too much for one card, but that's not even applicable anymore. I think they've just taken the cost out of Brawlers Guild Hall personally. It's just you can only win one copy that way. And that's fine. But you can keep playing just to like do quests or even just to rack up your weekly wins, or for that matter just to play. Maybe you want practice with a certain style, like maybe you're practicing your brawl style, or maybe you're practicing with like the mutate ability for workshop, or whatever, or maybe you just want to play for a while. Just whatever floats your boat. Also, interesting news coming up, sort of. Apparently, the Friday night Magic at Home event for this week, if you catch this early enough, will be that it's going to have a singleton event. I don't know if that's... I think they mean just straight singleton. Like, I don't think they really mean to do, like, Commander or Brawl style. I think it's just singleton deck. And I've already got one actually created for that. And this is, because that event went by so quickly, I think I'll kind of show what Companion means without actually necessarily playing it. Okay, let me explain a few things. I don't know if I can because, well, I still can. Never mind, I definitely still can. There's, like, no reasoning why I can't explain that, even with it not showing up physically the same way. Anyhow, you note here that I've got a companion, and this is the same one I got during that earlier event, which was really cool, because I got, like, one of the companions straight out, which was awesome. And it's got this different symbol to it. Like, you may note that the other creatures don't actually have, like, the claw symbol. Well, you can actually... Whenever you start using companions, you may also note that this little symbol has shown up here whenever you're doing deck design. And it's to enable companion filtering. What you do is you start off in your sideboard, and you put one of them that's able to be a companion there, like this one, Lurus of the Dream Den. And here's how companion works. If your deck design fulfills a particular requirement that it says on companion, then you can cast them once from outside the game. Now, what from outside the game usually means in Magic the Gathering, unless you're playing at home and you have access to like your whole collection, it usually means that which is in your sideboard. So what you do is you start putting one in your sideboard, so they're already outside the game, and they're not really in a commander zone. They're in your sideboard. But if they fulfill the deck design limitation that they've set, then you can cast them once from outside the game, and then they're suddenly in that deck. And also, each of them has an ability that pretty much complements why they have that requirement. And they may have other abilities too. But the fact that you can cast them from outside the game means it's very special. And again, it pulls them in. So afterwards, if they die in a particular way, whether they're sent to the graveyard or exiled, it counts as that within the game after that. And if your deck actually fulfills the abilities for more than one companion, then you can actually have decks that are tied to more than one companion. Again, they're usually located in your sideboard. However, this doesn't limit them to being in your sideboard. The cool thing about companions is you can in fact select them as a regular creature in your decks. And as long as you have the ability to pay their mana cost, you can cast them either from outside the game, like from your sideboard, or you can cast them from your deck as usual if you've got them in your deck. It doesn't matter which way. And they still have really nice abilities. Each one is a legendary creature that's a rare at this time. There's no telling how that's going to change the future of Magic the Gathering, because they always come up with some crazy stuff. This is a neat dynamic, because it kind of gives you the feel of having a commander without being limited to playing in a commander or brawl format. So, it's a bit of both. And this deck I designed pretty big, and I designed it around Luris of the Dream Den. And the thing is, his companion ability specifically states each permanent card in your starting deck has converted mana cost of 2 or less. Now his complementary ability is during each of your turns you may cast one permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. So you can bring anything back that someone has simply killed or destroyed, as long as they haven't been like exiled or something, and as long as there's nothing really preventing that ability. So you can just keep bringing them back. So if this game had one of the old quests that used to be in Magic Duels, the one about bringing creatures back from the graveyard or having them exit your graveyard in some way, then he would fulfill that so fast. Like, I don't care if they double the amount to like 20 or more. I'd be fulfilling it pretty quick just with like maybe 1 or 2 games with this deck. So it's how just by having this guy in it, really. I have other resurrection cards, but remember that specifically states to permanents. Now, lands never even have a converted mana cost. They don't even count. If there was such a thing on them, it would be converted mana cost 0 for those situations. Now, as for other things, it doesn't limit you in this particular design, with this particular companion, in terms of your instants and sorceries. So, let's kind of zip around here. Vicious Rumors, obviously it fulfills that anyhow, because it's only converted mana cost 1. Let's go to something maybe more expensive. Let me see if I've even got one in here, because I did focus heavily around very low price things, specifically. Partially just because it was really convenient. Good example. Revival and Revenge. This is an awesome spell I picked up a while back during the whole additional Ravnica cycle we were under. And you may note that you can still play both these options. It doesn't have one redded out or anything. That means that it's still fulfilling the conditions. This is because this is a sorcery. Now, instants also have that thing about them. If they have a really high converted mana cost, it doesn't count because it doesn't count against him specifically. It says nothing about that all your cards have to be converted mana cost 2 or less. It's just that all the permanents have to be 2 or less. So therefore I fulfill the conditions and I can have them set as a companion. Now whenever you first put them in your sideboard, it will in fact, and you click on it, it'll actually say set as companion, and that's how you kind of start this off. And if you have your companion filtering on, it will automatically show you the cards that are fulfilling that design that you could use that are within those conditions. So it makes it a lot more convenient. And I might show that off later somehow, but I'm not sure if I can. Well, can I click from my sideboard? Yeah, I can. But I don't have another companion right now. So, therefore, I won't be able to show off doing it according to them, too. But I might do it like another deck another time, and do it according to a companion, or I might maybe recreate a deck just to show that off to a degree. But, I don't know. But I guess I could show it off a little bit. Let me start creating one, and then just let it go. So let me just okay. Let me figure out how to do this. Let me say within standard, and this has like whole new like kinds of ways of filtering it compared with how it used to be. Let me say this is how you go with converted mana cost in this. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, and collected. Let me zip through here because there's not going to be as many with these conditions, so I can just kind of zip through. Because Luris specifically is white-black, and he's got hybrid mana symbols, which means they can be paid with either or. So you can actually be having them in a deck that doesn't include a black, or one that doesn't include white, as long as it includes one of the two. Both is particularly convenient, but it's just a thing with hybrid mana symbols. And they'll still count as whatever their different mana associations are overall combined. So you can have a white-black card in a red-white deck. It's just the way it works. Okay, I'm trying to zoom as fast as I can to show this off. Show the initiation of the event. Okay, Lures of the Dream Den. And even here it's saying set is your companion. Like, I haven't even put him into my sideboard yet. And I just clicked on him to go into my thing. So now he's set as my companion, and he should automatically be in my sideboard. Yes, he is. Or is it her? I'm not entirely sure. I might have to look up the lore on that one. But now it also has the symbol lit. It says enable companion filtering. If you click it and it's off, then it'll be pretty much everything as usual. But now it's got it filtered, and now if I also just say collected, let's say I take that off because it won't be necessary, put it in all of standard, which it should automatically, then as you can see, it'll have everything that fulfills that condition in terms of like your just your cards here that would be within that design. Now I haven't set like any particular colors yet. I've just done it according to like his conditions. So theoretically, if I had things that say allowed me to have mana of any color, like maybe a few artifacts or something, then theoretically I could actually have it with colors that completely don't match his color identity. And as long as I'm able to pay that, I can still bring them in from outside the game, specifically again from my sideboard, and pop them in. But it's still filtering everything else that's available according to that design. So all the permanents that I go past will be 2 or less converted mana cost because that's his condition. Now I've already set the filter to be converted mana cost 2 or less period. But let me show off what happens whenever I don't. I've still got companion filtering on. But watch this. Now, it still has the permanents as converted mana cost 1 or less. But you can see the instants and sorceries can, in fact, exceed that, because it's still fulfilling his condition without getting past it. Because these are instants and sorceries. They are not permanents. He only really concerns about permanents with converted mana cost 2 or less. So therefore, you don't have to worry about anything other than that. And it'll just fulfill, as long as it fulfills all the companions that you've set the conditions of, it'll show those cards. So, again, let me just show kind of how I started off doing my original set there. And of course, obviously, you make your choices from there. But yeah, now I basically set it according to his color identity. Kind of like whenever you set a commander, although commanders automatically limit that. Whenever you are playing either Brawl or Commander format, you have to have something that doesn't have anything in its color identity that your commander doesn't have. So it would be even more limited than this. Whenever you're doing a brawl-style deck. But yeah, as you can see, it goes all the way over here. And as a special note, I just like to put in anything with X. There's this old rule. It's not really necessarily thrown out there as much as it could be, but there's this old rule that says whenever X is involved with any mana cost, whenever you do a converted mana cost, you disregard X. It's basically treated as if it were 0, no matter what. So whether you're targeting something that says converted mana cost like 2 or less, or converted mana cost 2 or more, those qualifications will be not what the person paid originally, whenever they paid X. It will always be counted as if X is disregarded, as if X were 0. So this card, even though you could theoretically pay like 30 mana on it with a massive combo, and get like 30 counters on it, that 30 that you'd pay wouldn't count whenever somebody's targeting it. If something says that it destroys a creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, it would kill it. If it says that it has to destroy something with converted mana cost 3 or more, it wouldn't, because its converted mana cost is basically 0. So that's why it qualifies for Lurrus, is because its converted mana cost is basically 0. So therefore you don't have to worry about it. Now, if I was going historic, no, I'm not doing any changes. I'm just exiting here because I'm not even really doing that deck. I was just demonstrating. But yeah, you can see it didn't like add any new decks. In fact, I've kind of cleaned up a few. But yeah, that's how that works whenever you're starting off filtering for companions. So for that, because I'm done with my workshop event, and I managed to actually show off the companion dynamic. Those are the two most important things in Ikoria to know. Because again, counters is kind of simple. It's just like whenever you add an ability to a creature in the first place, and that's been done for a while. It's just it stays there regardless of whether or not something would give them that ability, because it's a counter, so it just stays on them. So kind of like, well, an instant or sorcery might give something, let's say, first strike till the end of the turn. Okay. That's till end of turn. That's going to be just like a temporary thing. You may have an enchantment that gives it the same ability, but it's as long as it's enchanted. So treat it kind of like a token that's not like an enchantment per se, but acts like one in terms of being an aura. It attaches to something else. But it's not exactly a permanent in and of itself. It's not an enchantment. It's just a little way of boosting your creatures up, and it stays regardless of other other circumstances. It's just a counter, but it just grants that ability. I mean, it's not really that big of a stretch. It's just apparently they hadn't done it before, so it's like, okay, it's like what's the next step? Can't we just slap abilities on creatures? Hey, we just use the token. Doink. Okay, we're good. Or well, actually, it's more of a counter. Technically, it's more of a counter. It is a counter, but counters and tokens can be treated very similarly on the battlefield whenever you're doing certain things. And if you're doing gaming, you can move little objects around to act as tokens or counters either way, so it's kind of interchangeable, kind of not. Because tokens usually represent permanents, and counters represent things on permanents. So, therefore, having ability counters, again, isn't really that much of a stretch. It's just nobody had really put those two ideas together before until now. So, whenever they made this wild set, they were going, what haven't we done? It's like, hey, why don't we just use abilities but have them as counters we can just put on stuff? So, okay, why not? And an interesting history on that, there was this crazy, weird test set that used to be out called Mystery Booster, and it previewed things as well. And one of them was there's this bird that apparently, well, I'm trying to remember if it was when it died or when it was cycled, but whenever that happened, you put a flying counter on a creature you controlled. So it was the first thing to use one of these ability counters. So, although Ikoria is the first to really emphasize it, and that whole testing thing wasn't really legal for like constructed play of any sort. It was really just for like a draft night and just for like crazy play testing. Apparently the dynamic managed to come through, so maybe we'll see other things from Mystery Booster eventually. And some of them I'm actually thinking, those were cool ideas. I wouldn't mind them showing up in later sets. So I check out Magic Gatherer a good portion of the time. So I've seen what those things were, and yeah, and this set does compare quite a bit to some of the craziest sets I've ever seen. Like this really is like an unset that became legal. So yeah, it's good that I've shown off some of the crazy stuff in it. Mutate being one of the wackiest that we've seen for quite some time. A Companion's just kind of an extension of the Commander idea, but not exactly. It's a nice idea. I like that. You go with certain rules, and some of them I happen to resonate with, like doing big decks. I'd like to get a couple other Companions that resonate with that. And so it's a really cool idea. I like that. Mutate is wild. It's going to take some getting used to. I was able to play with it and get through with it, but at the same time, it's just wacky. I'm probably going to enjoy it quite a bit, actually. I'm probably going to enjoy it quite a bit. So for now, I'll be logging off. Hope to hear from you all later. Bye for now, and remember, MTG forever.